Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kurt, and welcome back to Stellarium, for what I'm hoping is going to be a regular series on my YouTube channel. I mentioned this last time I was in Stellarium, showing you around the software, that I'd like to come back pretty much on a monthly basis and give you guys a what's up in the night sky, interesting things to see. Obviously, if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that astronomy is a big hobby of mine, a passion, if you will, and I hope to kind of pass that on to some of you guys. Some of you seem to be very interested in this, so it's a way for me, first of all, to help myself know what's up in the night sky so I know what I'm looking at through my telescope, but also I'd like to pass that on to you guys because it's really interesting, and it obviously affects all of us. We can all step outside and see the sky if we have a cloud-free night, so hopefully, at varying degrees, hopefully you're not stuck in the middle of a city where the only thing you can see is the moon and a few planets. So hopefully, if that is the case, this will inspire you to head out to maybe a countryside and see more stars and the wonders of the night sky. But here we are in Stellarium once again. I'm going to do all these videos from my location, Chicago, just because it's pretty much a middle latitude in the northern hemisphere. I realize all of you in the southern hemisphere are kind of missing out on this, but you can use the link in the video description to download Stellarium yourself. It's free, open source software available for Mac, PC, Linux, whatever you'd like. And you can use this to punch in your own coordinates and figure out what's going to be up in your night sky at any given night. So this is going to be just kind of an informal guide, an introduction, if you will, to the northern hemisphere. So keep things simple on myself because I don't know much about the southern hemisphere sky myself. So that's where this is going to be headed. But anyway, here we are, March 12th, the evening of March 12th, about what time? 7:15 local time. And this is going to be pretty much what you're going to see if you're anywhere in the northern hemisphere. You're going to see, just after sunset, Jupiter and Venus, very bright, very obvious to see. Mercury is way down close to the sun, and you'll be able to see it naked eye, but don't feel too bad if it's difficult to see on your first few tries, because it is so close to the sun. You have to have a very clear, very low western horizon, and you're looking through a lot of atmosphere. You know, if there's even clouds on the horizon, you're not going to see it. So Mercury is cool to see. Hey, I saw Mercury, but don't feel too bad if it's too hard for you to see. But the big show that's happening over the next few days is the conjunction between Jupiter and Venus. You might have already noticed that Jupiter and Venus are getting closer and closer into the night sky. I mentioned this last month when the moon was close to Jupiter and Venus. Let me try to see what that looked like to remind you guys. Yeah, the moon, the last time I made this video, was close to Venus, and then the next night close to Jupiter. And you were getting a lot of questions on Twitter and throughout the internets about what are these two bright stars next to the moon? Turned out they're planets. So today, on the 12th, the evening of the 12th, is when they've actually... yeah, that was daylight savings. So these times, while they could be local times, might give or take about an hour because the United States just went into daylight saving time. But yeah, as they get closer, it's called a conjunction, and this is something that's going to be really cool and really easy to point out in the night sky for anybody who's might not be familiar with the fact that you can see planets in the night sky. You say, hey, just after sunset, you can see these two bright stars that are really close to each other, that weren't close to each other just last month. Those are actually planets. Venus on the inside track around the solar system to the Earth, and then Jupiter way on the outside track. So that's really cool. And I guarantee that you're going to start to hear some things about UFO sightings because people just aren't familiar with these lights being in the night sky, just sitting there. You know, they might think, oh, it's an airplane, but oh, it's not moving, so it must be a UFO, which, let me remind you, what the U in UFO stands for is unidentified. Just because you can't identify a light in the sky doesn't mean that it's suddenly an alien civilization coming to visit us. You can correct all these people now that you know these are planets. Much more amazing, in my opinion. Well, actually, it would be pretty amazing to meet aliens, but much more amazing that we're looking at other worlds right here. So yeah, the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th are going to be really close conjunctions between Venus and Jupiter. If you do have a telescope or decent binoculars, you can take a closer look at Jupiter and you could start to see the 4 Galilean moons Castillo, Io, Ganymede, and Europa. That's always something cool. Through a telescope, you can start to make out the banding in the planet on the surface. Well, not technically the surface, the cloud layers, the cloud bands of Jupiter. That's really something cool. And of course, Venus actually goes through phases, much like our moon does. And at this point, we're starting to see shading on the side of Venus because it's going to start to overtake us in its lap around the sun, I guess, as you could say, because it's on the inside. It's orbiting much quicker than the Earth is around the sun, so it's going to start to go through phases. And I'm going to try to get myself at least once to head outside with my telescope and take a look at Venus through my telescope, because the next time I see it, it's probably going to be an even more amazing view. So if I can fast forward here, and what I'm going to actually do is turn on Venus's orbit in the sky. It's going to reach a point on the 16th, 17th, and the 18th. I believe technically the 26th. I'm figuring this stuff out as I go along, where it's going to be the furthest point away from the sun. And then it's going to start getting closer to the sun because, like I said, it's overtaking us because it's orbiting the sun much quicker. And I guess as a side note, another interesting date to look forward to is the 25th and the 26th, because the moon is going to once again take another pass by Jupiter and then Venus. So you're going to have a nice collection of bright lights in the sky to show people, point out. Perhaps you're heading home after a party or something. You can show your friends what's going on up in the sky. Hey, check that out. Planets and the moon. But yeah, that happens on the 26th. But as you can see, Venus is going to start to get much closer to the sun as the days pass. I'm clicking forward. We're into April 20th, May 5th, 9th, 10th, 12th, 14th, the middle of May. And let me actually move the time back a little bit. So now we're at local time 6:15 p.m. And you can see, and I've mentioned this before, you all know what's coming up. On June 4th, 5th, the next time I'm going to see Venus, aside from right now, it's going to be in front of the sun. And this is an amazing occurrence. This is what's known as a transit. Venus is going to pass in front of the sun, actually in between the Earth and the sun, and you're going to be able to see the disk of Venus, which is actually surprisingly large, given that it only looks like a point of light in the sky right now. This is the same concept as the solar eclipse when the moon passes in front of the sun and pretty much blocks out the entire disk of the sun, just at a much smaller scale. Venus is about the size of Earth, but it's so much more further away that you only get a disk like this. And if you're in an area where you can see this, I implore you, you must make an opportunity to see this event, because if you miss it, you're going to have to wait until a few years, maybe December 2117 is the next time this is going to happen, and that one's only going to be visible via most of Asia, China, India, Australia, places like that. If you're in America, you'll have to wait till 2490 for the next transit that's visible from the Americas. So this one is going to be mostly visible through North America. The best place to be is going to be in the Pacific. So if you're in Hawaii, Alaska, some islands in the Pacific, you'll be able to see the entire event. And then in Australia and some of Asia, China, you'll be able to see the end of the event. So us in America, we've got a good sky show. If I can... Oh, let me get back on Venus here. Hello. The first contact... Oh, stay on Venus, will ya? The first contact is going to be something like this. And I'm in Chicago here, so this is going to be Chicago's view. I'm going minute by minute here. Actually, what am I doing? Stellarium has kind of a fast forward mode. So as you can see, it's going to come in. You can take a look at it. Obviously not with your naked eye, but then because the Americas... Oh, we got a nice tree here in this landscape that's blocking our view. In the Americas, we're only going to see the beginning of it. We're not going to see Venus exit the other side of the sun. But that still is worthy enough to head outside. Be careful. Don't look at it with your naked eye. Get some specialized solar filter glasses, the same kind of glasses that you'd use for a solar eclipse. Or if you have a specialized telescope that's protected at the main aperture with a solar filter, or perhaps a special solar telescope. or I'm sure astronomy clubs around America are going to be having events for this, so look that up in your local events or something like that. But I'll talk more about this in the future when it gets closer. I'm personally going to be trying to head out west to a place with more predictable weather. I don't trust the Chicagoland area enough in June. I wouldn't want to wait. It's a once-in-a-lifetime, twice-in-a-lifetime thing that I'm not going to risk having to be clouded out for this event. So I'm going to be heading to the southwest to try to see this. But yeah, look forward to that. So my point about that is the track Venus is on right now, today, March... come on, let me get the time back here. The track that Venus we're looking at right now is going to take it around and in front of the sun. The last time, and like I said, this is like a twice-in-a-lifetime event. The last time this happened was actually 2004. It tends to happen in pairs, cycles like that. I unfortunately missed it in 2004 because at the time I was just out of college and I really hadn't been bitten by the astronomy bug. So take this as an opportunity to get this last-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see this. But like I said before, I'll talk about more of this when we get closer to June. Let me take you on a few more things you can see in the middle of March while we're turning off the orbit. While we're watching Venus and Jupiter in the west, we can actually look over into the east, and we can see another planet, Mars, rising in the east. Mars just passed over its closest approach to Earth, so it would have been a good time, and it still is a good time to take a look at it through a telescope. Like I said, Mars, being so small and so far away, rarely looks much better than this through a basic beginner telescope. If you've got a nice steady telescope, you might see a picture like this, where you start to see some of the polar cap and some darkening on the surface. If you're able to see its moons, you have a very steady skies and a very good telescope. But yeah, Mars is coming up, and then if you wait just a few hours later after sunset, say, we're still looking at Mars, say around 10 o'clock local time, Saturn will rise. So at the very least, if you're up right after sunset, you watch Jupiter and Venus set, you can turn around and you can see Mars and Saturn rise. So it's going to be a 4-planet night. And once again, like I said, if you're lucky enough to see Mercury, it could be a 5-planet night, just without a telescope, just naked eye stuff. So that's pretty amazing. I recommend everybody check that out. And like I said, this is pretty much anywhere in the northern hemisphere you'll be able to see this pretty easily. And as we get into the 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock hour, the moon will start to rise. Well, where am I? Oh, yeah, derp, that's why. Yeah, the moon will start to rise. I was a little bit too far into the month there, March 12th, so it's going to be a cool thing to look at in the night sky. A few other things I wanted to mention. I know in the last episode I mentioned... boop, boop, boop. I've got way too many nebula on. Let me turn down the nebulas. They start to clutter up the view. Let me turn on the constellation lines. I mentioned last time in the last video we've got Orion, Orion's belt, and the Orion Nebula. Something cool to see in the sky. I also mentioned some galaxies you might be able to see over here in the Big Dipper. But another thing I forgot to mention, let me actually go back a few hours. Oop, too far. Another thing I forgot to mention, where am I? Here we go. If you see the belt, Orion's belt, let me turn off the lines again. You can kind of follow that along and you'll see the cluster of stars over here. This is the Pleiades, better known as the Seven Sisters. Very young stars, very bright cluster of stars. And they're so young that if you have really dark skies and a really good telescope, you can see some of this wispy leftover nebulosity from the gases and the dust that these stars were born out of. So the Pleiades is a very good binocular object. It's so big in the sky. If you have a telescope, sometimes it's, the telescope, you'll see this, so you won't be able to get the full picture. So this is a really, really great thing for binoculars or even just naked eye viewing. And even in some fairly light polluted areas, you can get away seeing the Pleiades pretty well. Let me actually... There's too many stars here. I need to turn up the light pollution, which is a sad thing. Let me turn this down a few. So yeah, that's going on. I want to show you something in Stellarium now. I'll take a moment to show you some features of Stellarium while I've got it. There is an add-on that allows you to see satellites. Let me actually turn it a little bit earlier. Satellite flyovers are something that happen all the time, and talking of UFOs, a lot of people confuse them for UFOs because they're silent, they don't blink like aircraft do. The only thing you're seeing is the reflection of the sun's light off of satellites, and this plugin allows you to see when a satellite will be passing overhead. You can pretty much only see them after dusk and before sunrise, because otherwise, while they're passing over, they won't be visible because they're in the shadow of the Earth. This is good. This is a good plugin, and it's really cool. The only problem is it's kind of hard to plan for things because it has to be happening right now. I would suggest you check out a website called heavensabove.com. I'll put a link in the video description. I've mentioned this before, but you can plug in your coordinates or find your town, and then it'll give you a prediction of all the satellite flyovers that you can see. The best one to see, obviously, is the International Space Station. It's so big that it gets really quite bright in the night sky, and that's a really cool thing to see pass overhead. I don't think I, from Chicago, have any evening passes of the space station. Perhaps in the future I could show you that, but this is a cool plugin that actually comes with the vanilla Stellarium. To enable it, you can go into your configurations, go into plugins, and satellites. You can load it at startup. You can mess with some configurations. Right now I have it I have it showing all. You can just limit it to all the ones that would be visible to you. When you're looking for the space station, you want to look for where is it at? You want to look for ISS Zarya. It's codenamed Zarya because that's the name of the first module that was launched for the International Space Station. So yeah, the International Space Station is something you can see quite readily in the night sky. Oop. So there's that plugin. I also would like to teach you guys a little bit about astronomy here. Let me get into darker skies. If you're going to use this software, say you want to take your laptop out with your telescope or your binoculars, if you're in a light polluted area, that's fine. It's not going to make much of a difference, the light from your screen. But it is helpful. This little button right here turns on night mode. And as you can see, everything went very red. And that is because the human eye is least sensitive to the red side of the spectrum. Obviously, you know, the whole redshift, and then you get into different wavelengths of light. Dim red lights don't damage your night vision. And astronomers can get pretty passionate about this. If you're just getting into astronomy or an astronomy club, it actually might turn some people off because amateur astronomers are very strict when you're out observing, especially at a dark site. Consider the fact that it's a very rare occurrence. Without the moon, you want to go out on a new moon, so it's only once a month. And then on those days, it has to be cloud-free and very good viewing. So astronomers put a lot of time and effort into making these situations line up. So if they're out there at a dark site, it takes at least half an hour for eyes to get dark adapted so you can start to see a lot of the fainter objects. And if you were to suddenly turn on your laptop with a bright screen, or say drive up to the dark site with your headlights on, you might get beat up because that, even though it takes a half an hour for your eyes to get dark adapted, in an instant of white light, that can go away and you have to start that process all over again. So this software has a night mode in that makes it a little bit easier on your eyes. This still wouldn't be enough to take your laptop out at a dark site. They make, or you can home make, a kind of a screen or a box to put your laptop in, with a shroud that you have to put your head under in order to look at your laptop. Because as you might know, the laptop screens, even though you might have a red screen over the top of it or a hood, they still bleed light out of the sides, and sometimes you'll have a power light that's not red or stuff like that. So you have to be very careful when you're using a laptop out on the field, not to, first of all, destroy your own dark adaptation, but others around you, their dark adaptation. And that's a reason why you don't want to use a flashlight either. You want to get a specialized red flashlight, and a dim red flashlight. If you have a normal flashlight and you just put a red filter over it, that might still be way too bright, because even though, like I was saying, your eyes don't get as affected by the red light, a bright red light will still take away your dark adaptation. So very dim red lights are friends of amateur astronomers. So this is a cool feature that's built into the Stellarium software. And perhaps every month I do one of these videos, I'll start touching on different features of the software itself. But yeah, here we are. That is the interesting stuff that's happening here in the middle of March 2012 for the Northern Hemisphere. Please head out and take a look at the conjunction of Jupiter and Venus. That's always really cool. And like I said, it's a cool thing to be able to draw a line through all these planets, and you can start to imagine the orbits of each of the planets like that, like Jupiter, and then you can start to kind of trace an imaginary line as to the plane of the orbital plane that each of the planets go around the sun and throughout the solar system, and you can start to kind of, your brain can start to put together the third dimension of how all these planets and the solar system is working, and it's kind of a cool thing to do. Even you don't need a telescope for this sort of thing. So yeah, that's what's up. Like I said, in March. Please give me your feedback. Perhaps you have some questions about astronomy or things you'd like to see or you're looking forward to. I'd be happy to touch on those, converse with you guys in the comments, and also I'll keep some of those for the next episode of Stellarium here. Thanks once again for watching. My name is Kurt. I will see you next time.